you sound a lot better now.
Yeah, I'm connected right now. Okay, sweet. Let's start it. All right, welcome into State of the Nation. It is Tuesday, December 15th. Thanks for joining our live stream here at twitch.tv/official Oilers Nation. I am Tyler Yaremchuk. Nation Dan is here. Zach Lang is here as well, filling in, pinch hitting for Bag Milk. Mr. Zach Lang, how are you?
Doing great, my friend. How are you today?
I am fantastic. I got the Twitch stream up next to me on my phone, so I'm hoping this is all going off smoothly and everyone can be heard here on the Twitch broadcast. But Nation Dan joining us as he always does. Nation Dan, what's going on?
Well, I wasn't sure if you're going to ask me how I'm doing, Tyler, but I'm drinking some eggnog right now, so I'm doing just fine.
Zach, are you a big eggnog guy?
Oh, huge eggnog guy. I absolutely love eggnog. I'm going to be going to pick up a bottle of spiced rum here right away, and it's going to be rum and nog for about the next 3 weeks straight.
I've heard that the premix stuff from Costco is the way to go, isn't it?
I've heard about that too. I haven't tested it myself, but I actually got to do a Costco run this week, so I might grab a bottle there and give her the old go.
See, I don't trust other people to make my mixes for me. That's my issue. I like to be able to adjust the scale as to what I need.
Eggnog is the second best holiday drink right behind Nation Beer, so make sure you go pick up a case of that. And I suppose if you're in Alberta, it'll be a lot of drinking alone or just with the people who live in your house, but that's the way it's going to be. A couple of people in the chat already. Me_lurks says, so that's what Bag Milk looks like. And Grizz4327 says, Nation Dan is the Beyonce of the Oilers Nation community. Everybody loves him. Not every day you get compared to Beyonce, wow. Nation Dan.
That's, thank you, Grizz. I think Grizz and I went to junior high together or something, so he's a good person.
If you have any questions for us at all, feel free, hop in the chat, let us know, and we will get to them. Our planned topics that we get to sometimes are right there on the side of the screen. And the Oilers sent out this question on Twitter, and it got a lot of reaction, and I wanted to throw it out to you guys to start the pod. Your favorite Oiler at 12 years old. And now the three of us are all, different ages, so there should be some different answers here. While I give you guys a chance to think, I'll go first. When I was 12, that would have been the 09 Oilers. So that team's leading scorer would have been Dustin Penner. Sam Gagner, I think, was second on that list. So Sam Gagner would probably be really close to my favorite Oiler at 12 years old. But I was also a huge Ales Hemsky fan growing up. So for me, it's a split answer between Gagner because he was, the kid, right? Everyone loved him. One of the first high draft picks the organization had in a while. I loved Gagner, but my heart belongs to Ales Hemsky in terms of young hockey fan Yaremchuk.
I had to do some math. Now, 2009, I think I'm with you. I think I bought a Sam Gagner jersey in 2009 even, one of the pajama jerseys. So, I get that. But for me, it was 1998 would have been my 12-year-old year. And for me, it was absolutely 100% Curtis Joseph. Curtis Joseph, fresh off of that 97 stretch with the Dallas Stars and then bowing out to the Colorado Avalanche right afterwards. He was the great hope in this city, and so you can't be upset that I love that they chose 12 years old as the age. But other than him, it was probably like Jason Arnott. I really liked Arnott, and I thought that there was a lot of promise there. And then of course he was one of the money transactions that we had to do to get rid of some cash and some overhead. So yeah, but Curtis Joseph was for sure mine. What about you, Zach?
Well, I had to do a little bit of quick math, and I'm not very good at that. So I think I figured that when I was 12, it was the 07-08 season, and I had to quickly pull up a roster to take a look at those guys.
Because you don't want to actually revisit those years.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's so buried deep inside my brain, but it's kind of a split for me. I was a huge Dustin Penner fan. It was my first Oilers jersey. Actually, was a Penner jersey. I loved him. He was the refrigerator out there. 47 points that season, and I was always a fan of his game. I always liked that big power forward style that he played. But another guy that I always liked, and I liked that season, was Zach Stortini, and it's probably just because he had the same name as me. I was 12 years old, right? I was like, oh, hey, cool. Somebody else is named Zach, even though his is spelled differently. But I think it was between those two guys for me. But I think it would definitely be Penner to take the cake.
Avery in the chat says, people joke on the 07-08 Oilers, but they almost made the playoffs. The truly horrible Oil didn't come out until 2010. I think that's true. Was 07-08 the Smithson year when they went out and got Jared Smithson at the deadline? That came later, though, actually, didn't it?
Yeah, the Smithson year was later.
Okay, I don't quite remember the 07-08 Oilers as well as I think then, but
Let's see here.
Well,
I remember that Smithson.
That was after the dismantling of the Cup Run team, so you're looking at
that wouldn't have been the Smithson year.
Oilers went 41, 35, and 6. 235 goals for, 251 against. It's not bad.
Yeah, Avery says the Smithson year was 2013. He's right.
For you guys being as young as you are, for you guys to have gone through your formative years as Oiler fans, like when I was in high school, I was getting ripped by like Dallas Stars fans, but it was we were at least competing back then in the 2000s, early 2000s. You guys were coming up when it was yikes time to be an Oilers fan. Well, and to admit that you were an Oilers fan, right? It's tough to. So how did you guys maintain being Oilers fans?
I think just because, like, for me specifically, they were the local team, right? Like, I went to a ton of games with my dad growing up, which I was super, super lucky and fortunate to get a chance to do. So, like, just going to games all the time, like, you were almost, in my position, forced to be an Oilers fan to an extent. And, I mean, when you're young like that, like, 2010, Taylor Hall shows up, and all the talk is around, hope and the belief and things are going to get better. It's going to be a dynasty. So that like really made you bite in, right? Because you thought like young and exciting team. It's going to be like when the Penguins got Crosby kind of thing. Like every time one of these picks came up, that's what you thought it would be. Like I remember being so hyped when they won the lottery to get Nail Yakupov, as I mean, I'm sure everyone was as well. But like I think the hope kind of is what kept you coming back because I didn't know any better. I didn't know having a Stanley Cup winner to cheer for or a team that won playoff rounds outside of 06.
Well, for me, it's a little different. Like I mean, I was born in St. Albert, but I grew up in Calgary and I lived there until literally a year ago. So, for me growing up, 05, 06 was the first year that my dad actually let me stay up to watch the hockey games at 10 years old. So that was the team that I fell in love with, right? Like it was all those guys. And then obviously after that, it was the decade of darkness. And for me, it was always really hard. I remember actually being bullied as a kid for being an Oilers fan. Like it was terrible in Calgary. But as I grew up, everybody kind of respected the fact that like I was an Oilers fan and I was like a diehard Oilers fan. Like there was no wavering for me, right? So for me, I kind of prided myself in my fandom. And there were a lot of long nights on the couch with my dad, though, I'll tell you that much.
It's funny you say that you got bullied for being an Oilers fan in Calgary. I remember in my school, kids getting bullied for being like Avalanche fans, and like that's a successful team. Yep. You've won Stanley Cups, but there's so many Oilers fans that you're the odd person out, and so you were being picked on Jersey Day if you were in an Avs jersey.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was the only kid at my school that was an Oilers fan, right? So it was pretty crazy times. But
were you actually the only one, or was there another one like as you went through that you went out?
There was throughout all of school, there was never another Oilers fan. And funny enough, one of my best friends now is actually a Carolina Hurricanes fan. And he started cheering for the Hurricanes that year because he decided to pick the team that won out of the Eastern Conference. So it was between the Buffalo Sabres and the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes won. And it's kind of funny how one of my best friends is actually a Hurricanes fan. But I never had any other Oilers fans in Calgary with me. So it was I think it helped me and my dad's relationship grow even further to be able to bond over the Oilers.
Just going into the chat here, favorite Oiler when you were 12, Avery says Rafi Torres, Fernando Pisani, and Dwayne Rollison. You can tell what year Avery was 12 years old in. A ton of love for Doug Waite, a ton of love for Bill Ranford as well in the chat. So a debate on when the decade of darkness technically started. I like this one from Grizz. Acquiring Jesse Bolerice and immediately putting him on waivers after one game was the start of the decade of darkness. It would okay, Zach, you're doing a countdown right now, but it would be great to do a countdown of like the 25 most like obsolete Oilers transactions of the decade of darkness. Like not even the bad trades. That would be great. I just want the ones where like a guy showed up for 2 games, like Martin Gerber's run with the Oilers, right? Like I want those guys in there.
The aforementioned Jared Smithson era, trading a 4th-round pick for like 6 games. Yeah, that's actually interesting.
Or like what we got for the future considerations for the Alexei Semenov trade to the Florida Panthers. Like these things where it's just the deal existed and then you kind of forgot about it because for I think it was, is it Semenov? Is that who I'm thinking of? Anyways, we traded a Russian defender to the Panthers, and I was like, oh man, had so much promise for that guy, and he never showed up again in any kind of conversation ever. But yeah, it would be a fun series to watch.
I remember being at the game when we gave Ilya Bryzgalov a standing ovation as he came in for relief of whoever the starting goalie was, and I was probably Dubnyk. And Bryzgalov came in for relief, and the crowd was just so fired up.
You talk about obsolete.
And Bryzgalov was like a cult hero here because of the 06 playoff run where he was jamming along with us singing to the national anthem. That's always just a part of the Stanley Cup run now. So you get it.
One of my favorite things from meme hockey Oilers Twitter is there was a game the Oilers were playing on the road. I can't remember when it was, but Bryzgalov was the backup goaltender. There wasn't enough room for him on the bench. So I think it was somebody like Gene Principe took a photo of Bryzgalov sitting in his gear in a hallway on this like 6-inch TV watching the game.
Oh, no.
I'll have to look back for that one.
An actual hockey question in the chat from, and again, Steal the Legends 93. I love reading the names. That's my favorite part of doing this Twitch stream. Are there any more updates on the season? Right now, I think we're all just sort of living under the assumption that it's going to be a 56-game season starting on January 13th until we're told that's not happening, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of up in the air, and every Monday the cycle repeats where every insider says that there's been conversations and that they're still working on stuff and still looking at that number. But I think the only thing you can take away from it, and Zach, you can kind of probably speak more to it, is just like the fact that we keep seeing more and more players making their way back across the pond, as it were, coming back for training camp.
Yeah, I think that's just it. I mean, I think Ken Holland said last week that he wanted to have all the Oilers players back in Edmonton by the 23rd of December. So that's going to put it right on that timeline of mid-January. Maybe there's a little bit of pushback. Maybe it's, the 17th before they can actually drop the puck or something like that. But it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens and how it plays out here over the next month or so. But yeah, it's looking more and more like we're going to have hockey back here right away.
We just started the countdown on Oilers Nation's Instagram and Twitter for Connor's birthday or the start of the season, depending on which one happens first.
Tremendous.
We are going to be getting hockey at Rogers Place coming up right away with the World Juniors, and it's going to feature a couple of pretty prominent Oilers prospects in Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. And actually the one, we kind of know what Broberg's about now, but I'm super excited to see Dylan Holloway. Today on the Lowdown, we had Scott Wheeler on, and the way he was describing Holloway, he's like, man, he's the perfect player for this team. He kills penalties. He's one of their more physical forwards. He said he's one of, if not their fastest skater up front as well, and he's going to get a chance to potentially play on a line with some skill because of the fact he's a little bit different. He plays that north-south kind of style of game. Broberg or Holloway? I'll start with you, Zach. Which one are you more excited to watch in the World Juniors?
I think it's going to have to be Holloway for me. I mean, there's so much hype around him right now, and that's not to take away from Broberg or anything like that, but I think we've been able to see a little bit more of Broberg over the last year or two and what kind of player he can be. Holloway's still a bit of an unknown in that sense, but you're 100% right. I think Holloway's the perfect pick for the Oilers here moving forward. And the more I think about it, I'm almost happy that the Oilers weren't able to grab a guy like Jack Quinn or Seth Jarvis. As great as the offensive talent is there for those guys, the Oilers have also been struggling in that 2-8 game for so long, and Holloway really seems like that kind of player who can be up the ice both ends, contributing a lot.
I think it's going to be exciting to watch Holloway, and don't get me wrong, I know that there's a player there, and I think he's going to be exciting to watch, but for me, Broberg has an opportunity here to be one of the best players of the entire tournament. He's going to be a conversational piece for the entire tournament. They're going to be talking about Oilers prospect Philip Broberg, and I think that's more exciting to me. It's just like Holloway's, you're going to see flashes of Holloway's brilliance, and he's got a couple more years before he's really, at the top of his game. Broberg, this is his tournament. This is the year where he makes his mark, and I'm excited to watch that for sure.
And that Swedish blue line, by all reports, is one of the best in the tournament, and Broberg's going to be a key piece of that. It is nice, though, like when you just get to sit down, and we're going to get probably hockey all day here. I haven't dug into the schedule too much, but it's going to be something where, 3 games a day, kind of like it was for the NHL bubble, which I love because everyone who listens to the podcast knows how much I love afternoon hockey and being able to sit on my couch while we record these and have a game in the background to bet on. But there'll be even more incentive to watch that Sweden versus Finland matchup on December 27th. That really, usually you wouldn't care about, but you're going to be keeping an eye on it for the sake of Broberg in this year's tournament. Another Oilers prospect that's getting some excitement, obviously, is Carter Savoy. And we had Jeff Wojcicka on the Real Life podcast yesterday to chat a little bit about Savoy. Wojcicka coached Savoy for the last 2 years in Sherwood Park. So we chatted with him a little bit about that, and also a great World Junior story about Jordan Tutu. And Wojcicka said he roomed with Tutu back at the World Juniors in 2003, and Tutu was selling caribou jerky out of their hotel room during the tournament, which is just like hilarious. Like,
you gotta grind.
Such an old school story. And Dan, I guess I'll let you take this, but we're gonna have a chance to confirm that story on Friday.
Yeah, so I didn't actually even get a chance to listen to the episode before I just happened to be talking to Jordan Tutu in the messages at hockeyfights.com, and we're going to have Jordan on our podcast on Oilers Nation Radio on Friday afternoon. So look forward to that. For a guy, for me, from my World Juniors experience, Jordan Tutu is like the benchmark of excitement. That 2003 World Juniors tournament was his coming out party, where everybody was just kind of, oh crap, here's a guy that's going to bring some energy to the NHL. And so super excited to talk to him on Friday.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ton of fun. One other piece of the Nation that some Nation content that I found really good. Zach, you've been doing a countdown on the website, and so it's the top 25 moments of the year.
Yeah, so it's top 25 articles. So what I did is I just went and delved into the analytics on Oilers Nation and figured out what the 25 most read articles were. And I've been doing a little reverse order countdown of those articles over the last couple weeks here.
Is there one that's really surprised you for how much traction it got and how much people seem to care about it?
Not overly. I think all of them have been doing fairly well. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, a lot of these are things that people have already read, right? So, it was interesting to kind of see a lot of them seem to be kind of those trade talk pieces. I think those are the ones that really get people hyped up is seeing those moves. I think if anything, there was one that did surprise me a little bit. The 23rd most read article this year was about Joel Persson signing in Sweden. Why that article was so good, I have no idea. So that one was a little bit strange, but yeah, no, it's been a really cool series to kind of look back and give the writers a little bit of credit for their hard work over the year.
Steal the Legends 93 in the chat. What's stopping the league from saying puck drop on this specific date? They're still basically squabbling over money and the logistics of the season, even though they kind of said that, it was just weird how it all happened, because it was like 2 weeks of what's going to happen? Is there going to be a season? There's some big problems with the CBA, all that stuff. And then one day someone just snapped their fingers and was like, we're starting the season on this day and this is happening. And there was the report from LeBrun and Dreger saying that, an agreement hasn't been reached, but they're kind of on the same page. And then since that point, we really haven't heard anything.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think part of it too is there's been the squabbles over the money, but there's still the issue of the border right now, which is still closed to non-essential travel, and then we're starting to see vaccines rolled out here in North America as well. So I'm wondering if that's something that's kind of playing into it. I know there was that report from John Shannon last week that the NHL was going to try and privately purchase a bunch of those vaccines. If that's the thing that's going to happen, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. I know there's quite a bit of backlash towards the league in regards to that. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think that's kind of what's holding the league up the most right now.
Well, and I think we talked about it in June as well. The reality is there's a lot of moving targets in this scenario that we're playing out. You saw it today. The Raptors announced that they're intending to have some fans at their games in Tampa Bay. Some teams are going to be able to, as of right now, have a limited number of fans that are inside the arena for games. So you got to think that there's going to be moving targets and issues around where that money goes to, because there's not a lot of money to go around right now, and players are being asked to give up a lot more, as it was, like Tyler said, with the negotiations that were going on. So I think that there's just a lot of minutia that we aren't even aware of that they have to work out and they have to figure out, like we've mentioned on ON Radio before about trades. How is a team, how are the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers going to be able to pull off a trade? Does that player have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks? Are they going to purchase some of those rapid testing kits that we're using in the Calgary airports? So it's just, there's a lot of stuff that has to be figured out for this season uniquely. And I think that that's the reason that we haven't heard a lot of news other than those little tidbits that we get that get us all really excited.
Yeah. We only got about 7 minutes left here in the stream. And I know you wanted to bring this up, Dan, because it's a story that I didn't even know was a story, and it popped up, and it really makes you shake your head. But Gretzky, Walter Gretzky, police involved, theft. What's going on?
It just broke out this morning, just almost before we came on the air, out of, I guess it was Kitchener. CTV had reported that a couple of arrests have been made in Ontario and Alberta regarding Walter Gretzky being robbed of $500,000 worth of memorabilia and stuff. And it really upsets me from a various standpoints, from a Canadian, from a hockey fan, from a Gretzky fan. Here is Wayne Gretzky's household, or, childhood household, a place where Walter and Mrs. Gretzky, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, Phyllis. That's what my brain keeps wanting to say. But anyways, they would invite people in to come and see this memorabilia at will. And I think to your point too, Tyler, we didn't hear about this robbery about 3 months ago, and I have to believe that there's something, there's something more to this, and it's just so sad to see as a Canadian, to see something so special, a couple, a family that is so special and near and dear to our hearts. And we know Walter, it's been well documented that Walter's been struggling the last few years with his health. And so it's really disheartening to see. I'm glad that the RCMP was able to make some arrests and hopefully recover some of this memorabilia. But really, it's just that feeling of violation and that anger that you have and that upset that you have that this would happen to such a great person and such a Canadian thing.
Brutal. And Dustin Johnson had a quote. I don't remember quite when it was, but he basically talked about how Walter might be more loved than Wayne. And that's absolutely true. I remember being at a game at Rexall not too long ago in one of the final years at Rexall, and they brought out Walter, and the crowd erupted more than it did when they bring out Wayne. Walter he's Canada's father.
Yeah, well, and sorry, Zach, not to jump in again, but I remember that game vividly because I was watching it at home and I got teary-eyed seeing Walter there, and in his health is failing, and it's obvious that the years have taken their toll, but yeah, it's sad to watch. I don't know, Zach, what do you have to say? Sorry, I jumped in. Yeah, no, I was just going to say it really is sad to see that happen. I mean, my heart goes out for the Gretzkys because of that sort of thing, right? It's a shame that these people went out and took advantage of such a legendary family here in Canada. Who does that sort of thing? It's disgusting as far as I'm concerned.
It's good to see, though, that at least, like you said, Dan, arrests are made, some action was taken. Hopefully there's as much as there usually isn't, or can't really be a happy ending to this, hopefully it's a good ending in the fact that they can maybe recover some of this stuff. The last topic I wanted to touch on here was the taxi squad idea. And that is one of the things that's kind of holding up the return to play, is they don't know exactly what these supposed taxi squads are going to look like. Is it NHL contracts, AHL contracts, or whatever? On Friday, we had a debate of what to do with Evan Bouchard and the Oilers. And my side, and I wrote about it on the weekend as well, is that, he's shown us he's good enough at the AHL level. He has close to 30 games of actual games in Sweden in the Allsvenskan already under his belt this year. I would have him up with the Oilers. He's their fourth best right shot D-man. I think in a short, condensed schedule, you want him playing a lot, and you want him playing NHL games. And I think both those can be done here because, again, short, condensed schedule, lots of back-to-backs. Guys are going to get nicked up. There's going to be a chance for him to get NHL minutes. Zach, would you prefer that Bouchard is up in the NHL, even if it only means he plays 15 games next year? Or would you prefer if he's down in the American League where he can maybe play 40 plus?
Yeah, I think he's ready for the NHL. I think he's ready to take that step. And you make a really good point, too. Given the unknowns surrounding the pandemic, COVID, and the fact that, it's going to be a short, condensed season, I think there's even an opportunity for him to play even more games. Honestly, I could see him rotating in and out of the lineup with a guy like Adam Larsson on the right side of the Oilers defense. Larson's a guy who's battled quite a few injuries over the last number of years, and he does have that bad back as well that was causing him some issues last year. So maybe, you rotate those two guys in on that right side. Maybe it helps keep Larsson a little bit fresh and also gives Bouchard a chance to develop, not only from the playing perspective, from the practice perspective, from, the being around an NHL club and seeing the game from above. I think it can definitely change things for a guy like him.
Yeah, I answered this on the bag or on the bag milk. I answered on the mailbag question there on Monday, and when you look at the forwards, it's probably Haas, Nygaard, and then an Adam Cracknell type of player. Haas and Nygaard are basically penciled in, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you dig deeper on the defense, so on Oilers Nation Radio, I said that I don't think Bouchard should be there, and I don't think he would be there if the Oilers organization is what it is now with Ken Holland at the top. But that being said, when you look at the depth chart, it's him and Lagesson are probably the only two defensemen on our team right now that could potentially slide into the lineup on any given day and not be, and be serviceable as a replacement, as opposed to, putting in a kid that just isn't ready to be there. So yeah, it's hard for me to argue still to say that Bouchard isn't the guy that you put in there. And then, of course, Anton Forsberg, who some people think might end up being our backup by the end of the season. I saw that this week. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, we talked about all the minutia that they're working on. There's been rumors that the players have asked for the teams to be able to forgive one contract for the year, and then that way it opens up some money for some teams to spend on players to be able to bring in that kind of thing. So it'll be something to watch going into it, because I think if the Oilers do get some money freed up, I think they have to go out and get some veteran defensemen to be able to shore up, as we said, the issues with Larsson's back, Klefbom's injury, and then just, general expectations of, two young players in Ethan Bear and Caleb Jones having to step in and be everyday NHL players. And Bear obviously had a great season last year, but does he regress this year? And Jones hasn't had this much asked of him yet. So is that too much for him? So it's just, there's a lot of question marks still up in the air, especially on the defense. But as it is right now, I say Lagesson and Bouchard are your two picks on defense.
Brad Stepanko asks, what about Broberg? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Broberg's committed to spending the entire season in the SHL. Like, he can't come over until the SHL season's done. But at that point, if the Oilers are pushing for the playoffs or whatever, I would expect Broberg's going to come over to North America for some period of time, kind of like he did for the training camp in the return to play. A ton of talk about the defense, and we're out of time on State of the Nation, but that's probably something we're going to dig into a little bit more or Thursday on Real Life, and also maybe on Oilers Nation Radio on Friday, which will feature our friend Jordan Tutu, who's joining the podcast. So that'll be a ton of fun. Hope you can all tune in. Zach, thanks for pinch hitting for Bag Milk today on State of the Nation.
Anytime, my friends.
Mr. Nation Dan, I will talk to you again on Friday. Enjoy that eggnog. All right, there you go. That's State of the Nation. Thanks for tuning in every Tuesday, live on twitch.tv/Oilers Nation. For Zach Lang and Nation Dan, I'm Tyler Rumchuk. Talk to you next week.